Oh, okay,
Hi.
cool. Because I usually see the white screen, and then I don't know why I didn't see. Sometimes I don't see it. That's why. Okay, no worries. Anyway, welcome, middle aged gamers, to the latest episode of the Middle Aged Gaming Podcast. Today we are talking about Redfall because it was all over social media in the last 36 hours or so. If you're new to this, Redfall is a game by the famous Arcane Studios, but we'll talk more about that in a few seconds. So, but don't worry, today's not going to be just be about Redfall. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about, including Overwatch, which is a game by a studio that I like, Goblin's Studio. I played another one of their games earlier. We'll be talking about the CMA and Activision Blizzard and all the controversy around that. So stay tuned. But as always, I'm going to stop blabbering. We'll jump right into Adam's first story.
All right, so my first story is that Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon was announced. Well, I guess it was announced a while ago, but now we have an official release date. It's going to come out on August 25th, which is, 2 weeks before Starfield. So that's kind of a nerve-wracking for me. I definitely am super excited for this. I've already made 2 videos and 1 short about it. So, yeah, if you want to see me go into detail on what we're seeing here in the trailers and whatnot, go ahead and check out those videos. But just from kind of a brief overview, it's not going to tie in directly with the other Armored Cores, but it does seem to be in the same universe. Your character is a human plus, I guess you would call them participant, whether voluntary or involuntary. But you're coming from, the old world and you're coming over to Rubicon, it looks like it's going to be. So it's going to be kind of a fresh start, but I guess that you could call it a soft reboot in a way. We're seeing the return of a lot of older features. It's going back to having a lot of that aerial combat that we had in the original games. Armored Core 5 was a little more ground-based, so we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. A lot of old weapon types are returning. It looks like we're getting a few new weapon types. It looks like we're getting some kind of lance weapon or a sword that spins and kind of does this, I guess, buzzsaw kind of thing, or some kind of Darth Maul type thing going on there. So yeah, really exciting. It also looks like legs might be getting a little more variation in how they functioned. In the past, basically the only difference was bipedal was your standard. Reverse joint gave you a really high jump, so they were really good for aerial because you could get off the ground pretty quick. Tank treads allowed you to carry a lot and also allowed you to fire things while on the move that were normally had too much recoil for bipedal or reverse joint legs. Quad legs were basically the lighter version of tank legs. They were faster, but you could fire things while moving. And they're all making a return, but it looks like there might be some other functionality there. I've heard from some of the comments that people were mentioning it does look like at some point the reverse joint legs are doing some sort of kick attack, and it looks like the tank legs do some sort of like charge attack where it can ram into enemies. So it looks like we might be getting a little more variation there as well. So yeah, I'm just really, really excited, and check out our videos because my ego needs to grow bigger.
Those were some excellent videos as well. Oh, nice. Yeah, I think you and I talked about Armored Core before, so I'm really looking forward to giving this out a try. And this reminds me of a PC sort of in the early 90s when we would have been about like 7 or 8 years old. There was a mech game, which I cannot remember for the life of me, but this was like more of this style. It was like different from like again, around the same time was like the first Mech Warrior games first started coming out on PC. And I remember playing those. It was like Mech Warrior, like 2 or something like that. It was a really long time ago. And Mech Warrior was slower. There was a lot more tactical. And this looks cool. Oh my God, I just saw the video of the like special edition. I'd love to buy it, even though I'll probably never play the game.
It
The
looks
special
cool.
edition. Okay, so here's the thing. I released a short talk that basically lists out all the editions real quickly. It's like one of those old 1990s Micro Machine commercials. I'm just talking so fast. But it lists out all the versions. I'm probably going to go for the collector's edition, which comes with the 19 centimeter figurine. That's $230. The one with the garage is the only thing that's different is it comes with basically a garage set piece for the figurine, and that's $450. So it's nearly double the price just for that garage. So I would not recommend that one because to me personally, it's like you get the set piece. That's pretty cool, but that's not half the price right there just for that. So I would say if you're going for a collector's edition, go for the regular collector's edition. That would just be my
Is
take.
the figurine pre-painted or do you get to paint it?
I'm pretty sure it's pre-painted. They
Okay.
used to, way back in the day, they used to release Armored Core model kits. I think it was by the Leikai or Arts or something like that. They were the same. It was, I think it was the same company that did the Final Fantasy figurines, but they've gone out of business, and so you can still find some of the models online. But the problem is they're not made anymore. So you're basically finding like surplus models and stuff like that. So they're hard to find and they're expensive. But what was always really cool about the Armored Core models versus, say, Gundam models is in the Gundam models, you can kind of mix and match and create a custom one if you wanted to. But the Armored Core models were by design supposed to do that. So, all the arm joints would connect to all the torso pieces. So it was all about customizing your own mech and having, your own design that was unique to you. This one is a preset model, so I don't know if it's yeah, so I think it's all, I think it comes painted, it comes, put together and everything. I don't think this is a model set in the same sense that a Gundam would be. I think it's more of a model sense in the same sense that my Cloud Strife back here is. So I think it's kind of a pre-made model.
Adam, just for people like me who never played Armored Core, I'm very happy to see you so excited. I rarely see you like this, so I'm sure it's a very good game. But I really have no clue. So when I saw this trailer at first, what tilted in my head was like, oh, it looks like Ghost in the Shell meet Near Automata, some kind of this kind of mix. Am I way off the mark? Is that
You're
some because
way
it
off
really
the mark.
because
You're
you really look? I saw. I
way
was
off.
like, "Hey, it's kind of like Near, no,
No,
with a
it's
mech,
nothing like that. So the Armored
nothing." Okay.
Core is, and this is one of the things where I've seen people who are already claiming like, "Oh my God, this is going to be Game of the Year," and I don't think it will be, and this is why. This game is extremely niche, and I think I do foresee a lot of people kind of complaining about it when it comes out because it's not going to be anything like Elden Ring or something FromSoft has done in a long time. And so I think a lot of people are going to go into it expecting it to be one thing that it's not. Basically, it's, imagine it's probably like a faster paced mech warrior in a lot of ways. So it is third person, you're running around, you're controlling this mech, but you have your boosters and that allow you to power slide or fly, so you get that added speed. But it is very much about building your mech. There's no leveling up. There's no uh, RPG mechanics in that sense. It's all your stats are based on your mech. And I mean, these stats go down to the point where on the legs, one stat is literally turning speed. So, how quickly you can turn around is one of the stats. And so, it's not a quick twitchy based thing where you're like shooting around, turning around like maybe, like Near or Gears of War or something like that. Targeting also is not manual. And, it's not like a manual third person. They don't show it here, but one of the pieces you get is an FCS. And your FCS is basically your targeting module. So when you're running around, there's a big, basically a square on your screen, and that's your HUD. And if an enemy is within that square and within range, you'll auto lock onto them. And then if you shoot any of your weapons, with the exception of a few weapons are manual aim, such as rockets, those you have to manually aim, but everything else, even your machine guns or your rifles or whatever, will automatically aim at whatever you're currently targeting inside your target screen. So it's basically kind of like it's kind of like aim assist on steroids in a way for your targeting. So if you're looking for that kind of like, if you're looking for like an Apex kind of thing, or the kind of game where it's all about running around and shooting like Fortnite, it's not going to be anything like that. Turns, like I said, turn speed, is an actual stat here. So it's not like any of those. Probably the closest game that you're going to find is a mech warrior, and just think of it as a faster mech warrior, and that's probably the closest you can get to what to expect.
And in terms of gameplay, so just to make sure, is that some kind of like mission-based game where you finish a mission, go back to the garage, tinker with your mech, and go back to the next mission, or was there no
Yeah,
transition like this?
no, that's exactly what it is, and that's something that they actually mentioned, because a lot of people were, when it first was announced, people coming from Elden Ring were asking, "Is this going to be like an open world kind of thing?" And they said no. it's going to stick with the old format. And what that is basically you have your garage. You go to your garage, you can tinker around with your mech, you can do whatever you want, you add parts to it. It's going to give you different stats. Your legs can tell you how much you can carry, and depending on what weapons you have or what parts you have, your weight's going to be higher or lower. Depending on which parts you have, your mech's going to heat up, going to have a greater heat output or a lower heat output. So you have to put a radiator in there, and that's obviously going to be adding weight to you as well. So you're going to want to kind of find a balance for everything. And then you get a list of contracts because you're a mercenary. So you get a list of contracts. It'll tell you how much each contract is going to cost. It'll give you some information on each contract, like are you going to be engaging with biological units, or is this purely going to be other mechs? Are you going to be facing MTs, or are you going to be facing other ACs or some kind of big boss? You choose which one you want. Then you go into the mission. You complete it, and when you complete it, you get however much money you've earned from that contract, and they deduct any cost from that. So any damage you've received, you need to repair. Any ammunition that you've used, unless it's an energy weapon, you need to buy back. So basically, how you perform on the mission is going to impact the cost that you've accrued, and then basically you get to keep whatever's left over.
Krian, stop me because I have so many questions. We could run the whole show like this, so.
No worries, no worries. Cool. I'm looking forward to this. Oh, and a side note as well, is I did eBay it. So if you're living in Asia, you can still buy Armored Core models from Japan, which are still being made. And it's pretty affordable, like $100 US, and it's cheap shipping to Taiwan as well. It'd be $10 shipping, so you pay $110. You can get yourself a paintable Armored Core model. And there are a whole bunch of names which I don't know, but I'm sure Adam would know. But yeah.
They're just the part names. In the game, you have different companies, and then so it'll say like, okay, this is this company, and then they might have a name for that part. So it's just the name of, it's just the names of the parts, and then of course, companies might have intended sets. So this is the set for this, but of course, you can just swap the arm out for something else.
I'm actually sure I've seen these here in Taiwan, in 9x9.
I don't think they're Armored Core officially. I think those are more like knockoff kind of things, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right, let us move on to Redfall. And then I'm going to try and the hook, which is what I was suggested for this show. So, gamers, did you know Redfall is a bad game? Totally surprised. I was not surprised by this, but I think nobody was, because people were given chances to try this on. I wouldn't say like an open beta, but members of the press were like, hey, come out, check out this preview of this game by this studio, which has only done single-player games to date, and tell us what you think. And people were, the usual preview were like, yeah, it's good. It's not great. It's not fantastic. Hopefully they'll fix things by the release date. And no, they did not fix things. It's unfortunate, but yep, the guys will have a lot of stuff to say about it. But yeah, overall, critics' ratings are not great. As usual on Metacritic, right, you'll see these sort of high ratings are from like usually unknown media outlets, right? They're like, yeah, 85, and this is why we think it, but it's like, yeah, good. I don't know who is that. Hi. But yeah, ratings are not fantastic. It's unfortunate because this was a game with a lot of promise. I'll just go into my reason, and then we'll jump into Antoine, who also has some things to say about it. But I think it's just this, right? If you're a studio who has done single-player games, right, making really good multiplayer games in 2023, 2022, 2021 requires studio expertise, right? The Call of Duty studios, right? Treyarch, Epic with Fortnite, of course, right? PUBG, right? The Blue Sky Entertainment, I believe is the name, right? You have to have experience, right? And while you may argue, right, like Call of Duty has not been good all the time, yes, because they try new things, they try to innovate. Players say, yes, this is good. No, this is not good, and they reinforce that with their money, with their dollars, right? So if you come from a strictly single-player mode, right, and you try to make a multiplayer game, which allows people to say, yes, I'm enjoying this. I want to keep playing this all the time. I want to play with my friends. I want to get new gear. I want to level up and stuff. And you need to create all these mechanics. You need to create that addiction. You need to create the Left 4 Dead feeling, right? unfortunately, it's pretty difficult, right? Especially if you're thinking you're an engineer, part of an engineering team, right? You if doing this multiplayer thing, you might not even play multiplayer games, right? Especially as a middle-aged gamer, right? Like I don't play multiplayer games anymore. I you've heard me on this podcast say I tried Battlefield last year. That was the first and last time I will ever play a multiplayer game ever again because now I'm too old for it. It's not worth the time. It is cost benefit analysis is definitely on the lost side. So, yeah, have a look for it. My final thing to say before I pass this on to Antoine is this is something that some gamers could actually like, right? If you are a single player gamer, though, I think all the reviews I did read say, yep, no, this kind of sucks if you're by yourself. You do need to play this with friends. So, I mean, this is strictly, even though I'm on Game Pass these days, I will not give this a look just because it's a waste of time. And Antoine, after that negative note, what do you think?
It's very sad to see another bad game associated to Bethesda. So just a publisher, but again, Bethesda, come on, be careful there, what you're doing. All right, so my story was just to continue on Korean story. I was just wanted to talk about the Xbox Game Pass release of the month, and Redfall was part of this release. So it's a release day one. If you want to see the disaster for yourself, it's free on the Xbox Game Pass. So go and try and see what the all the buzz is all about. So that was released 2nd of May, which is today. You in 2 days you have Ravenlock. Ravenlock is some kind of adventure game, very colorful for a younger audience. So something that I would definitely let my kids play. So something that you can think about. But what I'm really excited about is 11th of May. You have Fuga Melodies of Steel 2. So if you listen to the podcast a few months ago, I played Fuga, first of the name, of course. Um, it was one of the first game I played while trying out the Xbox Game Pass, and that's one of the game which makes me stick to it because it's a fantastic game, part of the Little Tale Bronx series. And this is a game or a series with a very good, deep lore for a game which is almost unknown to us here in the West. So it's something that I highly recommend for you to play if you have the Game Pass. Play Fuga 1 before 11th of May. Number 2 is going out, and I'm definitely playing that one. Then 23rd of May, you have Amnesia, the bunker. So Amnesia is way more horror game, some kind of Calypso protocol, but instead of that, you are instead of space, you are in the bunker of the First World War. So deep, dark tunnel with monsters. Not the kind of game for me, but if it's your stuff, still free on Game Pass. Then something which is I find really cool, Railway Empire 2. So if you're like me, or like us, middle-aged gamers, you must have played tons of tycoon game in your childhood, like roller coaster and these kind of things. Railway Empire is coming from this long tradition of tycoon game. I think something along the line of Anno, but again, slightly different. I recommend that you try this way more than the rest. And then on 30th of May, Far World Pioneers. It's a 2D scroller, a bit like Metal Slug, shooters, lots of adrenaline, looks like a lot of pixel art. Not really my cup of tea, but you can try that. So that's also release you have for this month of May, which I find pretty good. And if, of course, lots of games are coming out of the Game Pass, and among them, the Paradox games, Iron Art 4 or something like this? Heart of Iron 4. If you're a Paradox, like 4X game, Paradox. I wanted to talk about the Paradox game, but unfortunately I didn't get too much info on that one, so I'll come back to it maybe in the next podcast.
Cool. Adam, what do you think about Redfall?
I think it's disappointing, and it does actually make me very worried about Starfield. I'll be honest. It is Bethesda, and I mean, people have been saying for a long time that Microsoft has a bad habit of buying these big franchises and then not knowing how to run them properly. And what Starfield does look really, really good, but it has been delayed almost nearly by a year at this point. So I don't know. Hopefully that's been enough time to fix the bugs out. But yeah, I don't know. It does make me nervous. I will say that. And it is disappointing that it's not doing that well with Redfall itself. I mean, yeah, I don't know what the problem was, but a lot of early reviews, the people that I've seen uh, on Twitter, some of them got invited to an early gameplay of Redfall, and then so they played it. They were praising it. They were saying how great it was. They were saying it looked amazing. Looked and played great. And then that IGN gameplay video came out, and everybody was kind of making fun of it, but they were mostly making fun of the person who was playing it. So, some of these people came out with their own footage and they were like, look how great this game looks, look how good everything is. And then it came out that the reviews, that when they invited people to do the reviews, they were inviting them to play it on PC. And so that's why it was able to play 60 frames per second, because they weren't playing on Xboxes. So PC was at 60 and then Xbox was at 30. But now on release, the Xbox version is actually doing better than the PC version. So the PC version has a lower rating than the Xbox version. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a mess. I don't know what went wrong.
If you trust numbers rather than reviews, or like Twitter and stuff, Metacritic. Arcane has released Prey, Dishonored 1 and 2,
Yeah.
some other stuff, which were all in the either 98 or 90s, really high score. This one is in the low 60s.
Yeah, it's just
Ouch.
it's
Big
yeah, it's
fall.
weird.
Yeah,
So
no, I don't. For me, I think it's not Microsoft's fault. I think this comes down to like the head of Arcane, or in the case of Starfield, it's going to be Todd Howard, of course, right? The head of Bethesda, who I mean, he was the guy who pushed Fallout 76, and look what happened there, right? Fallout 76 is still going, but again, it's never gonna be that massive multiplayer online Fallout because of the way it's monetized, of the subscriptions, and the way you pay for stuff. And I think this game Redfall is, they're gonna try and redeem it. I think it's gonna go the way of that game that had those big monsters that you were supposed to
Evolve.
hunt. Evolve, yes, I think it's gonna go the way of Evolve, unfortunately. Um, because I don't think like it's just the same as Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, there were a lot of people who played Cyberpunk, and people who are still playing Cyberpunk. But I think Cyberpunk is getting some DLC, but I don't think Cyberpunk's going to have the life that The Witcher had with the Blood and Wine DLC, with the other DLC as well, with the endless mods. It's just that.
Cyberpunk is still having issues. Huh? Recently, they released a 1.6 patch, which destroyed the game. Every time you pull out the menu or any menu, the map, your inventory, whatever, it freezes the game. It's terrible. Massive issue on the 1.6.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah, I'm with Antoine on this one. I think Cyberpunk is a different beast simply because Cyberpunk is a single player game. So Cyberpunk, you can, if you played it on release, it was a mess, but you can come back a year later and you can play it and it's beautiful. It works much, much better. They've had all the patches and all the updates, so you can come to it later to the party and it's a much better product. Redfall, though, being a multiplayer game, if people are going to jump on it on release and then they're not going to be playing it if it's not that good, which means a year later it might be fixed, but if I jump on, unless there are other people playing it, it's just not going to be able to survive. So I think the fact that it's I think if it was a single player only game, it might have a chance, but I think because it's a multiplayer game and multiplayer is just so competitive, that if you don't get that initial group of people to build your base up early, people who jump in later are going to be like, this game is empty. And so then they, so if I jump in, I'm like, oh, this game is empty. I jump out. Antoine comes in a month later. Oh, this game is empty. He jumps out, right? If we had jumped in at the same time, we could have played together. But because, there's no, on release is the time, later on, it's just, yeah.
to Adam's point, it's extremely competitive, even for games who do well. Like remember Valheim, the massive hype there was in the first 1 or 2 months. Everybody was on Valheim. 1 month later, servers are empty because it's not the flavor of the month anymore. I'm sure that lots of people still play Valheim, but it's yeah, you do. Oh, wait, we need to. Why we don't have a server together? I love Valheim too.
I don't. I think it's okay, but Valheim is a bit too. I just play with my brothers on
Repetitive.
Sundays. It's. I mean, Valheim's. It's a really cool game, but it's a really slow game. There's not like, when it comes to like survival builders, I actually prefer Adam's playing Frozen Flame, which I believe is like a faster survival builder game. It's fun. Valheim's too slow for me. Just that.
Frozen Flame is multiplayer. I'm sorry, I don't know.
You have single player, and then you can have private servers, and then they have public servers, so you can choose.
And I
Maybe
mean,
we should try that together.
well, I mean, I don't think it's crossplay though.
It's only on PC currently.
Are you playing on PC?
Yeah, I'm playing on PC.
Oh, I thought you were playing on PlayStation.
No.
Oh, okay. All right, we should
Well,
move
we
on.
can.
Yeah, we should move on to Adam's second story.
All right, so my second story is more doom and gloom for Microsoft, unfortunately. CMA has come out and they've basically said, no, Microsoft, you cannot buy Activision Blizzard, at least not in the UK. We're not going to stand for that. So,
Oh, Adam, for the podcast, you explain what the CMA stands for.
Competitive and Markets Authority. It's right there on screen. But if you're on the podcast, yeah, you can't read it.
Yes.
So the CMA is a government body in the UK, which basically it's their job to protect the market so that you don't have monopolies and that sort of thing. They're basically a watchdog for that sort of thing. And when Microsoft wanted to buy Activision Blizzard, obviously PlayStation made a huge fuss about it. Jim Ryan kind of made an ass of himself with the whole, I don't want a Call of Duty deal. I just want your deal to fail. That whole thing. I'm sure he doesn't have a deep Southern accent, but that's how I hear him in my heart. And so basically the CMA came out and they said, you know what? Sony is big enough. You guys have enough franchises, even without Call of Duty. It's not the one game that's keeping you guys alive. Let's face it. Without it, you would be fine. So, Microsoft, if you want to buy Activision Blizzard, that's okay. But, one caveat. We're not going to let you do it, not because of Call of Duty, but because of cloud gaming. And the reason is they said that basically, Microsoft currently already controls 60 to 70% of the cloud gaming market. Okay, there are other ones out there like, what's the NVIDIA one called? Shield? Is it? I don't remember.
It's NVIDIA GeForce Live.
GeForce Live. Okay, so GeForce Live is out there. There's some others out there, but Microsoft dominates it with this. And so basically they said, okay, you need to give us some sort of assurance that this is going to be a competitive market and this is going to be okay in the future. Microsoft basically came back. They gave them their proposal for how this should work. And it was things like, okay, we will give the 10-year deal, the same one that we're offering to Sony and Nintendo, that you can offer these games on your cloud-based gaming services. We're going to do that. We're going to, what else was on my list here? They said that sort of thing. And then Microsoft the CMA basically said, these are not good enough. First of all, when you say you're going to cover these things, you're basically only covering people who are streaming games. It's not covering other businesses such as such as subscription models like Game Pass. So because it doesn't support those, basically you're saying if I buy a game on Steam and GeForce Now says, okay, you own this game on Steam, so we're gonna you pay a subscription, you can play this game because you already own it. That's fine, but I can't go to say another subscription service like Game Pass where when I pay I can have access to certain games. It didn't cover those. So basically it was saying as long as you're not directly competing with Game Pass, we're gonna allow you to have this. CMA said that's not okay. Another thing is they said that it only supported games that were basically on Windows. So if you were using Linux or you were using Chrome or you were using something else, didn't support it. You know, you had to basically be in the Windows ecosystem. So you still had to be, buying a Microsoft product in order to get it. And also it said that by the things that Microsoft were proposing were basically setting standards that would not allow the market to evolve in the future and kind of adapt itself. Basically, Microsoft is saying, these are the rules, we're setting them down now. And of course, those rules are beneficial to Microsoft now, but in the future, it could actually possibly hurt other, competitors. And those competitors would have no chance to adapt the rules or set, new standards because the standards had already been set by Microsoft previously. So because of this, the CMA said for cloud gaming, this is actually not competitive. It's going to give Microsoft way too much control over cloud gaming as a whole. Another issue was that if any in-game purchases would Microsoft will get 100% of the proceeds from that. Now, normally, for instance, if you're in PlayStation and you buy something in Fortnite, PlayStation will take a 30% cut of that. Microsoft does the same thing. I think Steam does something similar.
30% is the rule.
30% is the rule, but
Yeah.
Microsoft was arguing these are all storefronts, and because these are all storefronts, that's why they get a cut. If I go to, say, GeForce Now, that's not a storefront, that's a service. I'm not buying anything from GeForce Now, I'm buying things from Steam, and then GeForce Now just allows me to have access to that over the cloud. Therefore, any purchases made while using, GeForce Now, not being a storefront, doesn't get any of those profits. We get 100% of those profits. And because of that, the CMA basically said, nope, this is not okay. And yeah, they turned down Microsoft's proposal. And then they said, okay, Microsoft, you're not allowed to come back to us for another 10 years. That's our 10-year deal. So Microsoft is now going to take this to court, and they're going to try to have this overthrown.
It's interesting because I read an article in the BBC. The BBC, the equivalent of the ESA, right, in the States, right? They were like, yeah, no, we wanted this deal to happen. They represent the gaming authorities in the UK. And they said yes, and of course everyone on the podcast knows I wanted this to happen because I read the stories about Bobby Kotick and Activision Blizzard and how they treated women and minorities and stuff in Blizzard, and it was pretty terrible. And Microsoft has not the greatest record, but a better record that Activision Blizzard had anyway.
A lot better.
So I was like, okay, let this happen. Not to mention, the whole, Taiwan #1 stuff about Blizzard and Activision, that stuff. And Microsoft wouldn't care about China, which is also cool. So, I think the deal will go through eventually because it's too big, too much power. Not to mention the current government in the UK, led by Rishi Sunak, who's a pro-business guy. He definitely has a lot of influence when it comes to courts and legal systems, that sort of stuff. So I'm sure his administration, I don't think you call it administration in the UK, but his party will find some way to make the deal go through.
Yeah, I would be surprised if this doesn't go through in the long run.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
so.
Well, and that the only thing with so it's only the UK, and currently was it the FCC in America?
Isn't the FTC, right?
FTC in America.
Yes.
I haven't remember. I haven't been in America forever. But basically those are the only two groups that haven't approved of this. Basically every other country has said it's okay. And yeah, like you said with the business thing, afterwards, Microsoft and Blizzard or Activision have said some pretty scathing things about the CMA, talking about like, we were going to bring business to the UK and you want the UK to be this, the Silicon Valley of Europe, but clearly you guys can't handle technology. And so we're going to be pulling out all of our deals with you guys if we need to, because clearly we can't trust you guys with making good decisions. So yeah, it does look like they're threatening business in the UK. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if, especially with other groups in at a higher court, if they say, no, you know what, it's fine. So that would be my expectation.
Go ahead, Antoine.
That's it. No, I still Europe has blocked big deals before, not in the game industry, but when I was taking the example of Air Canada trying to buy Air Transat, supposed to be a North American deal, and yet Europe said no, monopoly, you can't do that, and it's a massive deal which went down the drain, just like that. So, and just happened, it went to court. Court take years for this, so not sure if. The British guy, sorry, the PM, I just don't know his name, but if he's still going to be in power or if he's, the other party is going to be in power. So I'm not that as confident as you, let's say. It's great if it happens. I mean, it's going to be a massive monopoly on Microsoft, and I'm not sure if we really need that in the cloud industry. But I just, let's see what happens, basically.
Sounds good. Okay, let's move on to Antoine's story, which is about Overboss.
Yeah, so that was a lot of doom and gloom, this whole show with Redfall and all. So I just wanted to bring a bit of lightness and bring out. I believe this is a indie studio bringing this game, and I wanted to bring it out because it's gonna be released Q3 2023. But right now there's a demo available on Steam, so go and try it, and if you like it, then wishlist it for when it comes out. It's always good to support small studio. So what happens is, Overboss, you're a monster boss and you are used to hunt heroes and create dungeons and all, but that's not enough. So now you leave your underground, you go overground, and you compete with other boss to dominate the world. Overboss, the winner is the Overboss. So let me take the description on Steam, because to be honest, I understood a bit how it works, but you see tiles. The goal of the game is to create the best map, and at the end of the party or the game, the map with the most amount of points win and becomes the Overboss. So the descriptions on Steam is like each turn you draft one tile and token set from the market, which on your screen here would be on your left. You place the tile in an open spot of your map, and every terrain type is scored differently. So you have terrain, you have let me just come back here. You have terrain, you have different type of unit monster, and the point is to do the best combo to have the most powerful map. And it seems a very relaxing and chill and strategy game, which I thought Korean would like, to be honest. So I thought, what? Let's bring this out. I don't know if I will play, but definitely I'm gonna try the demo to see, because this kind of gameplay here, I haven't seen it much, and I really want to see if I'm gonna get bored after two maps, or if it's gonna be kind of addicting. I think it's gonna be kind of addicting to try to move your monsters and boss monsters and all of this to get the best combos you can have, and the most powerful map. So yeah, I want to try this, and I encourage you to try this. Try to encourage the small indie developers, because they are the one with the best ideas and the most original ideas lately. So I really want to try.
Yeah, I mean, to jump into what Antoine said, you guys would have heard me talked about Legend of the Keepers, which was a pixel art roguelike card game that I played a few months ago, which is really, really fun. Made by these guys. These guys are a French-based studio. They're between Luxembourg and Strasbourg. I have no idea where those places are. Antoine can tell me where that is, but that's apparently...
Northeast.
Northeast of France, yeah. See, I thought Luxembourg was like another country and not in part of France. So
it is another country.
Oh, it is another country. Okay, good to know. It is. But they're a French-speaking small country.
Oh, it's a tiny country stuck between France, Belgium, and Germany.
Oh,
smallest country in the world, right?
I thought that was Liechtenstein.
No.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's Liechtenstein. Yeah.
See, I remembered Liechtenstein. I thought Luxembourg was a country, but like on the Goblin Studio website, it's like, yeah, we're based between Luxembourg and Strasbourg. I'm like, is that inside France or outside France? Because they don't say it. But yeah, no, a wonderful game. Really cool studio. They really are in small indie studio. I guess less than 25 people. They make these sort of pixel art games. If you go to Steam, you type in Legend of the Keepers, you type in Overboss, you click on Goblin Studio, you'll see all these games. Their games are like 10, 15, $20. The game Overboss is actually on Kickstarter right now. You can buy the board game of Overboss, which is what they're kickstarting at the moment. But yeah, no, like Antoine brought this up. I remember playing, oh God, I was just thinking about this as Antoine was talking. The very famous train game, Full was on Heat know it because anyway, but like when I got into board games many, many years ago, I was like, oh, and I'm like, oh, let me play this on Steam. I spent like 50 hours playing a freaking board game on Steam, right? That tells you how much like, and I missed that experience because it was very simple, very easy, not a lot of thinking, but still very strategic, very fun, and competitive as well. This definitely might be something for me when I'm in the mood to play that and I'm on the PC as well. But yeah, Antoine, thank you for bringing it up.
Anytime. It's because, very recently I played Terranil from Devolver, Devolver being very famous indie studio. And it was extremely fun. Terranil is something that I highly recommend as well. So, I mean, I'm in my indie mood at the moment. It's gonna change very fast, but you know, and Fuga coming out, very soon as well, which I believe is either indie or close to be indie as well. So, it's my indie month. So I'm sharing the love. I'm spreading the love.
Wonderful. That is a nice. Let's. I think we should have done all the bad stories together. Let's move on to Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom leaks, which is unfortunate. So, if you're looking forward to this game, it is coming out on May 12th. Unfortunately, did you know Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom is already out? And yes, you can play it right now illegally. So please do not do that because there are lots of countries in the world where Nintendo can find out your IP unless you're on a VPN. And even then, if you're on a VPN, you need to be on a really good VPN where your IP is not tracked. But yeah, the ROM is out. I mean, again, as is preparing for the show, this is one of the top results when you search for Nintendo Switch. It's Zelda Tears of the Kingdom ROM, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom download, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, etc. These are what people are searching for. It's like a huge 2,100% increase in search traffic, of course, because who wants to pay $70 or $60 for this game? And when you can buy it and play it on your PC and it runs really well because the Switch does have its own dedicated emulator for those of you who do want to do that. But yes, so it is out. I saw a really cool headline, which is like Nintendo is playing whack-a-mole with streamers, which is really, really cool. I mean, funny as well, but unfortunate for Nintendo because a streamer comes up, he's streaming it, he's showing the story to everybody, and then Nintendo was like, take down, and then it's taken down, and then somebody does it on another platform or another place or another account. So if you're really big into story, if you're a big Zelda fan, you do not want to watch Twitch or search for this at all because you will find spoilers. A lot of outlets like Kotaku, Engadget, The Verge, they have their own sections. Like you can actually, if you do want to know what's going to happen in the game, if you do want to like say, oh, should I buy this? You can actually read about the spoilers. So that's totally up to you. This is unfortunate. I mean, if you are somebody who is streaming this, I would really think about the consequences because Nintendo's terms of service does state that they can come after you and that sort of stuff. So please be careful.
And Nintendo is famous for being very protective of their IP. Remember that. And they have a very strong legal team too. So just wait 10 days.
What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, no, I'm the most thing I'm curious about is what are the reviews saying. But yeah, I love how you're like, oh yeah, you can totally do this, but it's illegal, so you shouldn't. And this is exactly how you would do it, so you don't get caught. I love that. That was your intro.
I mean, we are not sponsored by NordVPN.
No, we are not. We are not at all. I mean, yeah, you could technically do it, but no, we want to explain how that. I mean, there's lots of articles online for people who do want to do that, and I think it reminds me when I was a younger person, right, playing games and stuff. The rules were a bit more flexible. Now, I mean, when you get older and you have money, you're like, I don't have time to play around with the stuff and just pay for everything. So, yeah, cool. Yeah, that is this story. If you be careful of spoilers, and let's move on to Adam's third story.
All right, so my third story, real quick, is kind of an interesting one. Oops, I hit the wrong button there. Go. So Skyrim is coming out with a new mod that connects to ChatGPT, and it also connects with two other things. What was it? Whisper and XVA Synth. So basically, those two, what they allow for is... Oop, why is this not showing now? Oh, okay, there
Just
we go.
had it like a few seconds
Yeah, I
ago.
don't know. But basically, it allows for text. One of them is speech to text. Whisper is speech to text. The other one is text to speech. And so what you can do is you can talk. It'll change your speech to text. It'll enter that to ChatGPT. ChatGPT will then generate something for the character to say, and then that comes back out, and then it translates that to speech. So you can talk to the characters in Skyrim now. They currently have some sort of environmental awareness, so you can walk up to them, you can hold a sword, and you can say, "What do you think about this sword?" And they'll say like, "Ah, it's a pretty nice sword. I really enjoy the ruby inlay or whatever." So they'll talk about it. The one thing that they do say is it is currently kind of slow. If you've used ChatGPT, you type in and then it thinks for a while and then it generates a response. It's not an immediate response. So that is definitely a thing. You're gonna ask a guy a question and he's gonna stand there for 10 seconds and then he's going to respond. But yeah, is this the future of gaming where conversations are entirely customized to the player and not scripted out previously? One thing that they are currently working on is having at the end of a conversation some kind of data dump where it can store previous conversations. So if you come back, it doesn't basically reset your conversation. They can have some memory of conversations that you've had in the past and that sort of thing. So that's something they want to add. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's kind of creepy, and yeah, that's that. So
Yeah, that's definitely interesting for future of RPG games.
yeah,
I mean, I was so excited. I saw this story. I was like, oh God. And I've been wanting to replay Skyrim and finish all the DLCs and stuff forever. You guys know I'm a big fan. Like I used Agent GPT to like analyze our podcast. Like this is all the things you should do, right? And it was just amazing. And I think we'll get it down. Like I think the slowness of the mod is probably down to just the fact that if you pay for ChatGPT 4, you have a certain number of API calls per day. And after that, it slows you down, just sort of like think of hitting your data cap. So I think as the service expands, as Microsoft with Azure offers a more comprehensive package for OpenAI, I think this is totally going to. I've already seen this being mentioned in a few like upcoming games. We can integrate AI into our game to offer customized dialogue and text, and it's absolutely totally doable because going back to the agent GPT stuff is like you can start off with a main AI which creates sub AIs to complete certain tasks, and on a massive worldwide server infrastructure level, it's totally possible. You could have 1 million people playing a game and inside the game has 1 million different small AIs which control every single thing, and that is wonderful.
different for sure.
I know. People are worried about it. And not to mention the story. If you would have seen the tech story, one of the Google's first AI guys quit. He's like, "Yeah, this is scary. Google's got to slow down. I'm quitting Google so I can tell people to be careful of AI." And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Wasn't he the one that said that the AI had the intelligence of a child and it was like talking to him and telling him it wanted to be free or it wanted to die or something like that?
That is another guy. This is one of the he's like in his 80s or 90s. He's considered the father of AI. Actually, he's but yeah, no, different guy. But this guy quit so that he could come out and talk about it. But I think like every tech person I've talked to have said, it's not going to stop anytime soon.
No, there's no stopping it.
No, it's going to be, yeah. I still think it's going to be weird because something that people tend to forget that ChatGPT is based on a language model, which means, and of course, it doesn't have a conscience, it doesn't have your values, it doesn't have all this kind of stuff. What he's answering you is based on his research and his logic and stuff. So you're not talking to an actual human there. So it's gonna be a bit strange, to have answers, from a character like this in a video game, purely based on logic and completely, devoid of any conscience. I don't know. We can, with ChatGPT, I don't see it happening, but with future AI as it develops, and maybe we'll see that. But
because that is going to be the end of our story, right? So, gentlemen, what's the next week looking like for gaming? Adam?
I'm going to be doing Frozen Flame. I made a mistake. I thought that the servers, because when on the beta the servers had been taken down, they said the servers were back up. Every time I checked, the servers weren't back up. I couldn't figure out why. It's because I was still set to beta mode. I had to go back to you have to change a setting in Steam itself. So now the servers are back up. So now I realize, oh, okay, I've built my boat. I'm probably just going to play on the public servers for a while. Probably going to be streaming that. And in my own time, I'll be doing Persona 5 on my New Game Plus. So,
Anton, what about you?
Not much time these days. So I think I saw something interesting. Like not too long ago, there was a DLC released with a new map for Sniper Elite 5. So it's definitely something that I can do, like in an evening or something. So I think between now and then, I will definitely try to play this. It's relaxing. Because after that, there's Phil told me there's an open beta weekend for Diablo 4. When is it? Like it's not this weekend, would be, I guess, the weekend of the 13th, I believe, something like this. And it's also gonna be when Fuga 2 is released. So video game will be quite full at that
All right,
time.
middle-aged gamers, wonderful show.
sorry everybody, we timed out on our what do you call it? Google Chat. So it timed out. So thanks all for coming, and we will see you again next week. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Bye bye.